Oh man, I love a good jig. Welcome back, Sawdusters. There is a corner in my house where blankets get rolled and piled, and today we're gonna do something about it. I'm not the first to make a blanket ladder out of construction grade lumber, but I might be the first to resaw the wood so the whole thing can be made from a 10-foot 2x4. Now I don't have a 10-footer, so to build it for free, I'm using an 8-foot 2x4 and a little bit of scrap. But even if you had to buy wood, you could still make this project for about $5. I've already marked a center line down the middle of the 2x4 so we can head over to the bandsaw and start cutting. I decided to cut the 8-footer down into 2 smaller pieces since the verticals of the ladder are only going to be a little over 5 feet. This means I can run smaller boards through the bandsaw and have less weight to hold and stabilize. The bandsaw leaves a bit of a rough face, but a couple of passes through the planer will clean it up real nice. Let me move all the boards onto the material support and we'll keep rolling forward. So effectively, we've turned the 2x4s into 1x4s. You could buy 1x4s, but 2 10-footers is going to cost you more than $20. The next step is an optional one. I'm going to rip the boards down to 2 3/4 inches at the table saw instead of leaving them at 3.5 inches wide. By reducing the width of the board, I'm hoping to eliminate any wane. Wane is when part of an edge is missing. And if you're going for a rustic look, that may be just the thing you want to keep. I want to put a 10-degree angle on the top and bottom of the verticals. This will help the ladder lean back against the wall, and the easiest way to do this is at the miter saw. I just need to line up the end of the board with the blade so that I don't take off more than I need to. I cut the verticals to 64 inches long, and while I had the miter saw out, I cut the rungs to about 20.5 inches. That'll make the overall ladder about 22 inches wide. With that done, it is time to put the miter saw away and pull the table saw back out. I want to make a cut perpendicular to the 10-degree miter. It can be done on a table saw, but it requires a little bit of creativity. I pulled out my Incra crosscut sled, and to be honest, I wasn't even sure if it could go to 80 degrees, but it can. The fence is just a little useless at that angle, so I've clamped on this extra piece of wood, glued on a stop block, and this should make it dummy proof, but we'll find out. While I had the table saw out, I used the router wing to put a round over on all the pieces of wood, just easing over the edges with an 1/8 inch radius bit. With that done, we can put the table saw away and turn our attention to some joinery. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to dust off that like button. I'm just using pocket screws to connect everything together. I've got the K5 Craig jig here, and it works really well if you'll take the time to attach a vacuum. I've got a stop block set up to make repeatable holes, so we're ready to get started. Oh man, I love a good jig. The verticals are at a 10-degree angle, but I want the rungs to be straight up and down. So I use the offcuts from earlier with a couple scraps of wood to make alignment spacer jigs that'll hold the rungs in place while I screw it in. And even though it's end grain, wood glue will still add a little bit of strength. Let me get this board in place and throw in a clamp over top. Just make sure that nothing's gonna move around while we drive the screws in. And I've got the chuck on the drill turned down to 10, just so I don't overdrive them. There you go. Construction of a blanket ladder is done. This should get the blankets up off the floor in my living room. And it also used up some 2x4 material I've had for a couple of years. I'm thinking about adding some stain and a coat or two of wipe-on poly. So let me know down in the comments what you think and if you do anything different in building your own blanket ladder. If you enjoyed this video, you should watch one of these next. I hope you have a great week, and as always, get out there and make some sawdust.